The chandeliers above cast diamonds of light across the marble floor of the grand celestial ballroom. 500 of the city's most influential people filled the space. Their laughter mixed with the soft clink of champagne glasses and the smooth jazz from the live orchestra. I stood in the shadows near the service entrance, my fingers wrapped around a glass of water, watching him. Adrian Blackwood commanded the center of attention as he always had. Broad shoulders and a tailored tuxedo, that practiced smile that once made my heart skip, now making fortunes for his struggling company. The massive screens around the ballroom displayed his company logo, Blackwood Industries, innovation through excellence. How ironic that phrase seemed now. The host's voice boomed through the speakers, silencing the crowd. Before we continue with tonight's celebration of Blackwood Industries' remarkable turnaround, it's time to acknowledge the force that made this evening possible. Adrian raised his champagne glass, that confident smirk playing on his lips. He had no idea. None of them did. For the past 6 months, a mysterious benefactor had single-handedly saved Blackwood Industries from bankruptcy. Their company, Aurora Empire, invested millions into tonight's event and the company's restructuring. The host paused for dramatic effect. Tonight, for the first time, we reveal the face behind Aurora Empire. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Arabella Sterling. The sound of Adrian's crystal champagne flute shattering against the marble floor echoed through the sudden silence. I watched the color drain from his face, watched his mouth open and close like a fish gasping for air. His new wife, barely 25, dripping in diamonds he couldn't afford, grabbed his arm, confused by his reaction. I stepped out of the shadows, my crimson gown trailing behind me like blood on snow. Each click of my heels against the marble counted down the seconds to his complete unraveling. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, whispers rising like smoke. Some recognized me from the divorce headlines 3 years ago. Penniless wife abandoned by billionaire husband. How the tables had turned. As I climbed the stage steps, I caught his eye. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. In a way, he had. The woman he'd buried under years of humiliation had risen from her grave, and she'd come to collect. I took the microphone, my voice steady as steel. Good evening. 3 years ago, someone told me I'd never survive on my own, that I'd come crawling back when reality hit. I paused, letting my gaze find Adrian's trembling form. Reality did hit, and I didn't just survive. I conquered it. The applause was thunderous, but all I heard was the sound of his world crumbling brick by brick. This is the story of how I got here. Before we continue, please write in the comments which country you are watching this video from. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment above my mother's alteration shop on Riverside Avenue, where the sound of her sewing machine was my lullaby and the smell of fabric softener was my perfume. We weren't poor enough to starve, but never rich enough to stop worrying. My mother, Elena, raised me alone after my father died in a construction accident when I was 3. She sewed until her fingers bled to keep me in school, to buy me books, to give me chances she never had. I met Adrian Blackwood at a charity gala I was catering to pay for my college textbooks. 22 years old, wearing a borrowed black dress and shoes that pinched my feet, I was refilling champagne glasses when he approached the service table. "You don't look like the usual catering staff," he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Because I'm not," I replied, not looking up. "I'm an engineering student who needs to eat." That made him laugh, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise even him. "Engineering at Morrison University. Full scholarship," I said, finally meeting his eyes. They were green like sea glass, sharp and beautiful. Adrian Blackwood extended his hand. "I know who you are. Everyone knows the Blackwood heir." "Arabella Gray," I said. "Well, Arabella Gray," he said, still holding my hand longer than necessary. "How about you finish your shift, and I'll wait outside to take you to a real dinner? One where you're not serving it." I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain screamed that men like him didn't date girls like me for the right reasons. But there was something in his eyes, a loneliness that matched my own, a hunger for something real in a world full of facades. I get off at 11, I heard myself say. He was there at 10:45, leaning against a silver Mercedes, having traded his tuxedo for jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than my mother made in a month. We went to an all-night diner where he ordered pancakes at midnight and told me about the pressure of being the only Blackwood heir. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in expectations, he said, syrup dripping from his fork. Like I'm playing a character in someone else's story. So write your own, I said simply. He looked at me like I'd solved world hunger. You make it sound so easy. It's not, I admitted. But the alternative is worse. Living a life that was never yours to begin with. We talked until sunrise. When he drove me home to Riverside Avenue, he didn't flinch at the narrow streets or the graffiti on the walls. He kissed me outside my mother's shop, soft and careful, like I was something precious. I want to see you again, he whispered. I'm not part of your world, Adrian. Then let me be part of yours. For 6 months he was. He'd show up at the alteration shop with coffee for my mother, sit in the back while she worked, asking her about her life, her dreams, her stories. He'd pick me up from my engineering classes in beat-up jeans, taking me to food trucks instead of five-star restaurants. He helped me study for exams, genuinely interested in my projects and designs. My mother adored him. He looks at you like you hung the moon, sweetheart, she'd say, pinning hems while he held the fabric. His family will never accept us, I warned her. Love finds a way, she said, ever the optimist. The proposal came on a rainy Thursday. Nothing fancy. He showed up at my dorm room with takeout Chinese and a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I know we're from different worlds, he said, getting on one knee between my roommate's dirty laundry and my textbooks, but you make me feel like myself for the first time in my life. Marry me, Arabella. Let's write our own story. I said yes, foolish girl that I was. I said yes because I loved him, because I believed in us, because I thought love could bridge any gap. I was wrong. The first sign of trouble came at our engagement dinner with his family. The Blackwood estate sprawled across 40 acres in Westmont Hills, a mansion that looked more like a museum than a home. His parents, Connor and Constance Blackwood, greeted us in the foyer with smiles that never reached their eyes. So, Adrian tells us you're from Riverside Avenue. How authentic, Constance said, air-kissing my cheeks while somehow avoiding actual contact. The dinner was held in a dining room with a table that could seat 30. Crystal everything. Gold-plated everything else. My mother had been invited and arrived in her best dress, purple silk with careful beading she'd done by hand. She looked beautiful to me, but I saw Constance's lip curl. Elena, is it? Connor Blackwood said, pronouncing my mother's name like it was foreign cuisine. Adrian says you're a seamstress, Constance murmured. How quaint. Though I suppose someone has to do that sort of work. Adrian squeezed my hand under the table, shooting his mother a warning look, but the damage was spreading like wine on white cloth. His younger sister, Penelope, kept making comments about my dress. Off the rack, isn't it? His brother, James, questioned my scholarship. Diversity quota, I assume? Actually, Adrian finally interjected, Arabella has a 4.0 GPA and 3 engineering patents pending. Patents? Connor mused. How modern. Though I suppose you'll be giving up all that career nonsense once you're married. Blackwood wives don't work. I'm not giving up my career, I said quietly but firmly. The silence that followed could have frozen hell. We'll see about that, Constance said with a smile that promised war. They turned my mother away from the bridal suite the morning of the wedding because she wasn't on the approved list. I found her crying in the parking lot and nearly called the whole thing off. Don't, she said, gripping my hands. Don't let them win. You love him. Yes, I do. Then love him. The rest is just noise. But the noise got louder after the honeymoon. Adrian changed slowly, like poison in the water. The man who had sat in my mother's shop became someone too busy to visit Riverside Avenue. The man who had helped with my engineering homework now made comments about my small projects. The partners at the club are asking what your wife does, he said one evening, 6 months into our marriage. It's embarrassing to say you're still pursuing this engineering thing. Engineering thing? I stared at him. I'm about to graduate with honors, right? But what's the point? It's not like you need to work. I want to work. I've always wanted to work. He sighed, like I was a child refusing to understand basic math. Arabella, you're a Blackwood now. We have a certain image to maintain. Your mother's image? I asked. You mean our family's image, he corrected. Which is your family now too? By our first anniversary, the transformation was complete. The Adrian who had eaten pancakes at midnight was gone. In his place was a stranger who criticized my clothes as too middle class, my friends as not our kind, and my dreams as unrealistic. He had become his father's son, and I had become the embarrassment his mother had always seen me as. Year 2 of marriage was when the real cruelty began. Small humiliations disguised as concern. Darling, Adrian would say at parties, his hand possessively on my lower back, tell everyone about your little shop idea. Then he'd laugh. She thinks she can start a business. Isn't that adorable? As if running a household wasn't enough work. I stopped mentioning my engineering degree after Constance made too many jokes at family dinners. My diplomas were relegated to a box in the basement after Adrian said they cluttered his study. Financial control came next. Why do you need your own account? He'd ask. Everything I have is yours. Except it wasn't. Every purchase required his approval. When I bought my mother a new sewing machine for her birthday without asking, he canceled the payment and lectured me for 2 hours about financial responsibility. Your mother needs to learn independence, he said. She's not poor, Adrian. She's working class. There's a difference, isn't there? He looked genuinely puzzled. From where I'm standing, it all looks the same. My mother noticed the changes in me. I'd lost weight. Not the healthy kind, but the hollow kind that comes from forgetting to eat because your stomach is constantly in knots. She'd ask about the bruises on my spirit that showed as shadows under my eyes. He doesn't hit me, Mom, I assured her. There are different kinds of violence, sweetheart, she said. But I wasn't ready to hear it. The night that broke something fundamental in me came at his company's annual gala. I'd worn a dress my mother made, a stunning midnight blue creation she'd worked on for weeks. I thought I looked beautiful until I saw Adrian's face. What are you wearing? His voice was ice. Mom made it, isn't it? You look like you're going to prom in the ghetto. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. Go change. Wear the Valentino, Adrian? She worked so hard. I don't care. You're not embarrassing me tonight. I wore my mother's dress anyway, the first act of rebellion in 2 years, and he made me pay for it. He spent the entire evening telling anyone who would listen about my quaint background, how he'd rescued me from Riverside Avenue, and how much I still had to learn about their world. You know, he said loudly to a group of investors, wine making him crueler than usual. When I first met her, she was serving champagne. Can you imagine? My wife, the cater waiter. They laughed. I died a little more. Sometimes I wonder if you can ever really take the Riverside out of the girl, you know? At least Riverside taught me dignity, I said, my voice cutting through their laughter. The silence was deafening. Adrian's face turned purple. The ride home was silent, but his mother called the next morning. You humiliated him, Constance hissed. After everything he's done for you, lifting you out of squalor, and this is how you repay him? He humiliated me first. He humiliated me the day I thought I could be one of them, I said. That afternoon, Adrian came home with flowers, the expensive kind that looked like an apology, but felt like a leash. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting my eyes. I had too much to drink. You meant every word. He didn't deny it. Instead, he said, I'm just trying to help you fit in. Arabella, is that so wrong? I don't want to fit in if it means losing myself. You don't have a self without me. What would you even do? Go back to Riverside? Back to serving champagne? You wouldn't last a week without me. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You're nothing without the Blackwood name. Remember that. Year 3 was when I started planning my escape. Not consciously at first, just small acts of preservation. I started sketching engineering designs hidden in recipe books. I opened a separate email account. I reached out to old professors just to keep in touch. The catalyst came on a Tuesday. My mother had a heart attack. I was at a charity luncheon, playing the perfect Blackwood wife, when the hospital called. I left immediately, Adrian's protests echoing behind me. She was in surgery when I arrived, and I sat in that waiting room for 6 hours alone. Adrian never came. Traffic, he said when he finally called. Plus, I had that merger meeting. You understand. I understood perfectly. My mother survived, but barely. The bills were astronomical. When I asked Adrian to help, he sighed. We've discussed this, Arabella. Your mother needs to stand on her own feet. She could die. That's dramatic. The hospital has payment plans. I sold my jewelry to pay for her care, pieces Adrian had given me that I'd never liked anyway. When he noticed, he was furious. Those were investments in our image. Our image doesn't need a ventilator to breathe. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. Not with his hand. Adrian was too sophisticated for that. With words. You're pathetic, he said slowly, enunciating each word. A charity case I took on who forgot her place. Your mother's dying because of her lifestyle choices. Poor people always do. And when she's gone, you'll have nobody but me. Remember that when you're feeling ungrateful. I packed that night while he was at his club. Not everything, that would have been too obvious. Just essentials hidden in a gym bag. Important documents photographed and uploaded to my cloud. My grandmother's ring, the only valuable thing that was truly mine, sewn into the lining of an old coat. I left on a Thursday morning after he'd gone to work. No dramatic exit, no confrontation, just a note on his pillow. You were right. I'm nothing without the Blackwood name. Time to find out what I am without it. I took nothing he'd bought me. Left the credit cards, the car keys, even the wedding ring. I walked out of that Westmont Hills mansion with one suitcase and $2,300 I'd saved from selling my jewelry. The divorce papers were served to his office that afternoon. I had been planning for months, documenting everything, preparing for war. But Adrian didn't want war. He wanted me to disappear quietly. The prenup I'd signed meant I got nothing, which was fine. I wanted nothing from him, except my freedom. She'll be back. I heard him tell anyone who would listen. When reality hit, it hit immediately. No one would hire an engineer who'd been out of the field for 3 years. The Blackwood name, which had opened doors, now slammed them shut. Constance made sure of that with well-placed phone calls. I took 3 jobs: barista at dawn, data entry during the day, bartending at night. I lived in a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant on Cypress Street, where the walls were thin and the hot water was theoretical. But I was free. The idea for Aurora Empire came to me at 3 a.m., standing in my tiny kitchen, too exhausted to sleep. I was sketching on napkins, a habit from my engineering days, designing products that didn't exist yet, smart jewelry that monitored health, elegant wearables that didn't scream tech, fashion meeting function in ways the market hadn't seen. I couldn't afford to patent anything, but I could afford to learn. YouTube became my university. I studied coding, business development, marketing, supply chain management. Every break, at every job was spent reading, learning, growing. I slept 4 hours a night and worked 20. My first breakthrough came from my barista job. A regular customer, Dr. Amelia, a venture capitalist who always ordered the same coffee, noticed my sketches one day. Doctor. Amelia picked up one of my napkins. "What's this?" she asked, her eyes scanning the sketches. "I'm designing smart jewelry," I said, trying to sound confident. "Wearables that track health without looking like a fitness tracker." She raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Do you have a prototype?" "Not yet. I'm still figuring out the engineering side." She smiled. "I want to help." That one sentence changed everything. For the first time since leaving Adrian, someone saw me as capable, not broken or irrelevant. I worked harder than ever. Between 3 jobs, I spent every free minute sketching, calculating, and researching. I created simple prototypes out of old watches, beads, and wires. I learned coding online, taught myself 3D modeling, and slowly figured out how to turn my designs into something tangible. Nights blurred into mornings, but I didn't care. I had freedom, and freedom tasted like fuel for ambition. 6 months later, I had a working prototype. A bracelet that could measure heart rate, track sleep, and send subtle alerts to a paired phone. Elegant, discreet, and functional. I showed it to Dr. Amelia. She turned the device over in her hands, testing it, analyzing it, nodding slowly. "You're onto something, Arabella," she said. "If you patent this and market it correctly, it could be huge. But you'll need investors."